Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Medfield Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen or view the meeting while in progress may do so by following the instructions on the agenda and meeting notice. All votes subject to remote participation and therefore will be roll call votes. I'll just mention to people that I'm having technical issues with my video, so I don't have video. We start all of our meetings with a moment of consideration for the troops of the United States that are serving around the world. So why don't we do that to begin with? Thank you. Especially hard time of year for those people so far from home. So Chris, I don't have the agenda in front of me either, so I'm very technologically limited. So our first meeting is with the school building committee. Is it with Mike Quinlan?
Correct. Mike Quinlan is here.
Hi, Mike. Why don't you take the floor then?
Hi, Pete. And hello to the Board of Selectmen, Christine and Nick as well. You may recall last week we discussed the what's called the local actions and approvals letter that's required by the MSBA to be signed by the superintendent, the chair of the school committee, and the chair of the selectmen. There were some administrative issues we needed to take care of in terms of open meeting law, just to get some minutes amended, which occurred last night. So that is now all out of the way, and we believe in full compliance with all open meeting laws. So we are asking for you to sign the letters so that we can submit that as part of the PSR to the MSBA.
All right, thank you. Any questions, Gus?
I don't have any questions. Nope.
Mike?
I was at the meeting last night when we did those set of approvals.
Right.
So I having read those minutes and documents, I'm good to go as well.
Okay, do we have a motion then?
So I would move that we authorize the chairman to sign and approve the local actions and approval letters to be submitted to the MSBA.
Second.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Murby?
Aye.
And Mr. Marcucci, aye.
Anything else, Mike?
No, just thank you and happy holidays to everyone. I hope everybody stays safe and enjoys some time with family.
Oh, thank
Thank
you,
you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike, same to your family.
Likewise to you.
Bye now.
Thanks for coming. And Chris, our next item? Can't hear you, Chris.
You're on mute.
Sorry. We are going to talk about solar and the Kingsbury Club. So
Okay, I should recuse myself from this.
correct. All right. Nick, do you just want to give an update? Where
Sure. Sorry, we have a crying baby. I just want to make sure he's quiet. I think, Gus and Mike, I sent you an updated email this afternoon, just kind of where things land with Clean Footprint. Long story short, they are looking for 3 pieces. They want the town to agree to their latest proposal, which is a discount of 1.25 cents off basic service as a floor, and 10% off basic service as a possible use if that results in a greater savings for the town. And then that would cap at 1.5 cents off basic service. So, that we have negotiated a floor on the discount, and we've also negotiated a float that would increase the town's benefit depending on where the basic service rate goes over the next 20 years. That obviously that float is capped at 1.5 cents. So there's a little bit of flexibility. The second thing that they're looking for is that the town would not seek too many more changes to the agreement itself. I sense that there is a little bit of flexibility there, but they wanted to get the economics out of the way first. And then thirdly, they are seeking a pilot agreement that would be locked in at $7,000 a megawatt, and they're not really willing to talk about that at this point. So that's what they're calling their last and final offer. They are, they're willing to take up the town on its offer to not enter this agreement with the town, and therefore we would only be doing its pilot. But that's just kind of where things stand now. I can answer any questions or give you any additional info that you might need.
So Nick, probably from a negotiation standpoint, the only question I have is whether we're going to be able to get rid of that 5% penalty on payments more than 30 days.
So when I reached out to them with a couple of the agreement questions, they said, we'll talk about these, but we just want to agree on the finances first. So I didn't get a sense that that was something that they didn't say there's no way we're agreeing to that. So I would see that there's flexibility there, and that's unusual for a community to even accept a deal that has something like that in it.
Yeah. In terms of any of the comments I had on the contract, I think between you, Mark, and me, and I think you forwarded my comments to them. None of those other things, I didn't see any of those other things as showstoppers. The only thing I really had a problem with was the penalty. So I think that I'll come back with some comments about the spreadsheet you sent, Nick.
Okay.
But Mike, if you have any questions or comments, maybe you want to jump in now.
So I didn't, Gus, when I had heard that you were taking a look at the agreement for the terms, I didn't go through the agreement to wordsmith any of the terms. I'm comfortable with the economics.
Yep.
So, I would prefer it without a cap. I understand why they want a cap. This does give us some upside if the prices go up to a certain point. And it is a benefit for the town. It's a savings for the town. The Energy Committee is recommending that we do it. And so I'm comfortable with those financial terms, and we'd be willing to agree. I think the issue for me on the pilot payments, I think, Nick, you said in your memo that that Sorrell thinks we need town meeting approval for it. And I guess what I would wonder is whether if you were to charge property taxes based solely on the general formula, what would they be? I mean, so in other words, we're taking a payment in lieu of taxes. What is it in lieu of?
So
Mike, I don't know if you want to add a little context there.
Well, I mean, the pilot payment is instead, we're going to agree to, that's what they're going to pay instead of paying any property taxes on the installation. Is that right?
Right. So, yeah, and the tricky part about the property taxes is the value just plummets out of it completely. So I would have to get back to you with what they would be taxed at in the first year, but the depreciation would be, almost immediate on personal property.
No, there's Mark.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so I'm sorry for my delay in getting into this, but anyway, generally what the advantage of the pilot agreement is it levels out those payments over the life of the thing instead of having the big upfront and the drop off. It spreads out the payments so it's even payments throughout the life of the thing.
Yeah, that's fine to me. I thought the number is fine. I mean, I don't have an objection to the number, and so I'm comfortable with the finances there. We'll be getting a savings of, in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000 on our electric bills, and then an additional $13,000 in, I think 13 is the number, right, Nick?
Right.
Yeah, is in pilot payments. I mean, that's additional revenue. It satisfies the town objective of increasing the amount of solar power that we have. Presumably it helps the Kingsbury Club. It's obviously a important business in town. So I'm comfortable with the economics here.
Good. Yeah, I'll reinforce that. I came at it slightly different than you did, Mike, and Nick was very helpful this afternoon in forwarding the original video of our Board of Selectmen meeting back in March 2019, which I was watching just before I signed in here. When John Porter came and first represented this to us, he indicated that the pilot payments would probably range somewhere between 300 and 400,000 over the 20-year period. But he also projected that the savings to the town, should the town choose to, at the time, it wasn't automatic that the town was going to buy the electricity or do what we're talking about here. But he basically suggested that the savings to the town could be upwards of 300 to 400,000 over a 20-year period. So that in my head, as it was being represented to us, it was a 20-year potential benefit to the town of 600,000 to 800,000. The spreadsheet that Nick sent to us, which is assuming that the electricity rates don't change from the 10.7 cents per kilowatt hour that the spreadsheet is based on, indicate that the total projected benefit to the town, and that includes the AOBCs, which obviously we're making assumptions on how many of those get sold to us. But that total benefit was 761,000. So out of an initial presentation of 600 to 800K 20-year benefit to the town, this proposal is 760,000 in that range. I think that's acceptable, subject to whatever we have to do with the town meeting. This looks to be a fair, legitimate offer, assuming all the projected numbers around the electricity credits is correct. Recognizing it could be better than this, because I think if anything, the electricity rates, at least at certain times in the year, go above 10 cents a kilowatt hour. Just economically alone, it seems like it makes sense. And it was interesting to listen to our discussion, because the other piece that maybe gets lost when we're only talking economics is that this is a good project. The town is putting something in that's going to be generating electricity through solar power. So there's this other piece that's the qualitative piece that says this is a good thing for us to be doing on that basis as well. So for all those reasons, I think that this is probably reasonable and we can live with it, as long as they get rid of that penalty clause. Mark, am I missing anything?
Well, you're talking economics, and I'm leaving that to you folks. If you've got some legal issues, I'm happy to comment on those.
That was what I was asking.
Okay, can we get rid of the penalty clause is what we're asking.
It's a negotiable thing. I mean,
Yep.
It's not etched in stone. Either they want to do the deal or they don't. It is
So
after 30 days, so it's not like. But again, that's something that would be more common with a private party in a contract than the municipality.
So Nick, you said that they'd be willing to talk about various clauses in the contract as long as they had the economics. What I think I'm hearing tonight is you have the economics.
Okay. I will follow up with them and flesh out some of those other issues on the legal side and circle
Now,
back with you
if
folks.
I might, because they're pressing me on the pilot agreement. So the attorney's analysis on the authority of the pilot agreement referred to the town's charter, which we all know is not exactly the perfect municipal charter, and it gives the selectmen all the authority that Mass General Laws gives the selectmen. Well, guess what? Mass General Laws reference to the authority of the selectmen is whatever the town charter gives them. So you're into a total, catch-22 situation. So it's always been my understanding and opinion that when you're dealing with something that has an impact on municipal tax revenue, it needs the authority, the authorization of town meeting in the absence of some specific statutory or charter grant of authority.
Which, Mark, you saying we do have, we don't have?
No.
Or we have, but through a circular route?
No, you do not. It's not expressly laid out anywhere. And then it's compounded by the fact here that the way these facilities are treated for taxes is in legal limbo by reason of the legislature's failure to address some definitional stuff. So I think for all those reasons, it needs town meeting authority to enter into this.
So,
I mean, can we agree to this subject to town meeting approval? Recognizing the pilot part of the agreement is going to be in limbo until town meeting votes on it?
It's a legal nullity until you have the legislative authority, and I believe the assessors also need to sign off on it.
Yeah, and I would also just add in from Clean Footprint and Kingsbury's perspective that they are anticipating the town needing town meeting approval. So they are not they're not looking for approval of the pilot anytime soon. They understand that that would have to go to town meeting. What they're looking for is that the selectmen would support it at the $13,500 economically.
Okay.
We can do that.
Okay.
At least I can do that, Mike.
All right, so we can circle back with them and keep you updated as we go through their process on the agreement.
Okay.
Hopefully
Yeah,
have something to sign in January.
Yep, I think that might work if we can get things agreed to pretty quickly.
Do we need a motion of some kind, or just as our general agreement with the terms sufficient, and we'll have an approval of the finalized agreement at our next meeting?
I think that's the way to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
You're
And Nick, thank you very much for your efforts
Yeah.
negotiating this. I know it's been a pain having to deal with me and Gus, and then it's, negotiating with the other side. It's not the easiest way to do it in a pretty complicated situation. Oh, here we go.
If I might,
so close.
I'm assuming Pete's recused himself. Is that right or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
All right,
covered
so
his
I don't know
ears and
who's
his
acting.
camera.
I don't know who's acting as chair, but my other concern here, and why I think we need to really dot our I's and cross our T's, is I don't even know who we're dealing with right now. There's multiple parties involved in this transaction, representing the solar transaction. I don't know who or what those entities are, let alone my assumption that this project will be flipped at some time in the future, just based on my experience with other solar projects. So that's another reason why I think we need to really proceed cautiously and make sure the town's protected.
So Mark, are there other issues with this agreement beyond what we just talked about around economics that you're saying we need to be worried about?
Well, no, because I think it's the authority for the pilot agreement as an aside. The other aspects I think you and I, Gus, talked about when we were talking about your concerns and what is it that they're actually providing to the town. They're not directly providing electricity to us, so
Correct.
that ratchets it down. They just need to have the ability to provide the tax credits, and once you get the tax credits, I don't think they have any control over their validity.
Yeah. That had to do with the passage of title that we talked about. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So that's. But that's what I'm looking at. I think it would be a way different situation if we were actually relying upon them to provide a portion of the town's electricity.
Right. Hey, Mark, only because Nick forwarded that March 19th video to me and I listened to it, there was one point that you raised with John Porter there around the town, to your point about this being sold off or passed on to someone else at some point. The discussion you had with John was making sure that the town had the right to review, basically approve that kind of a transaction. I wasn't paying attention to it when I was recently reading the agreement. I assume that you made sure that was in there, right?
We've gone back and forth on that. I'm not sure we're in a final point, but I basically asked for language that says not only do we review it, but that any proposed buyer is as creditworthy, at least as creditworthy as the initial parties that we contract with.
Mm-hmm. Because I would comment that John Porter indicated it was very easy for them to accept the terms that you mentioned during that March 19th meeting, and it's something that they often do. So it may be the specific terms you proposed are a little different, but in terms of
he might need to be
he
may need to be refreshed on what he said back then, because
it's about the 1 hour mark on the March 19th video. Thanks. Yeah. Nick pointed me in the right direction.
That seems like 7 lifetimes ago.
Given all the disruption, it seems to me, short of, committing anything from a contractual standpoint or economic standpoint, it would be, I'm assuming it would be helpful to make sure they understand that we would like to see this project go ahead, we like what they're trying to do. We're working out the details on an agreement here, but basically this is, we're sensitive to what the disruptions of 2020 probably has done to their original plan. We would like to get this thing agreed to and pushed ahead. We think it's a good thing. We'll do our best within the limits of what we can do, not to unnecessarily delay it on the town side.
So there's basically agreement in principle on the financial terms.
Right.
And it's all, but to finalize the deal, we have to reach agreement on the legal boilerplate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Pete back.
I'm back. So are we basically done with our meeting then, Chris?
We are done. I don't have any other updates for this evening.
Any selectmen reports, Gus?
My only one is that I thoroughly enjoyed the holiday lights tour. We given that they didn't do it Thursday, and I knew there were tickets available, so we were saying, okay, when should we go? And we said, let's make sure we go when there's snow on the ground. And so Friday night was the night that we went through. From the standpoint of orchestration of traffic, that everything I've heard from other people, and certainly our experience, is that the method that they used to space out the traffic both solved our traffic backups on the road problem, but it also probably made the whole thing more enjoyable for people going through. I was envious of somebody who I think went through on Saturday night and actually had the goats crossing the road in front of the live creche. I would have probably enjoyed that even more if I'd kind of been like part of the scene like that. But anyway, I thought it was a great, I just have to compliment cable TV and CAM. This is two events now that they've kind of pulled out of a hat during a year when people probably really can use these kinds of events. I guess you could say the Halloween event was an over success in the sense that we had traffic jams, but I think both of them were big successes. I think they're getting smarter about how to orchestrate this kind of an event. My sense is that these kinds of things help reinforce the state hospital brand as a place that when we do finally get it redeveloped, people will know what it is. They'll have some better sense of how beautiful it is up there. And I think that will work to the town's benefit in the long run.
Mike?
Yeah, I would echo everything Gus said. I see that Gene Minio is on. So hello, Gene. And great job to you, to Brett, to Medfield TV and Cam. It really was terrific. I had a very, very unhappy 2.5-year-old at about 5:30 on Sunday afternoon. And when we went through the lights, he had a great time. We all had a great time. And I thought the songs and the commentary and the commercials on the radio while you went through was a surprise. I wasn't expecting that, and that was great. It was a really great touch. And so it was a wonderful event, and you could see it as something that maybe even in a year where that is back to normal, that it may be something that will still be of interest to people. I just thought it was really well done and a lot of fun, and it was a great thing. And I think at least judging by the traffic on 27 on Saturday night, it seemed like Saturday night might have been the busy night because I was heading up 27. We were doing some shopping that night, and there was a line of cars heading in there. So, but it seemed like it was popular, and I hope they did well on it. And I think it was great. Congratulations. Thank you.
I got one other, when you mentioned Saturday, I have one other shout out that I think is due to John Thompson. So oftentimes on Saturday after I go to the transfer station, I go home by way of Hospital Road, and I went up there just to see how things, I was curious how busy it would be. Well, predictably, because of the snow, Hospital Hill was being fully used. The soccer fields over near the athletic fields were being fully used. As I was pulling in just to see if there were still dog walkers, John Thompson is there right at the gate. And as I pulled up to him, he said, I'm just trying to direct people for where they can park, where they won't get, stuck in the snow. So this was at like 3:00 on Saturday afternoon. It looked like, I almost want to say it looked like Muscle Beach out there but in the wintertime version of it, the parking lots were full. He was trying to direct people to other places. He said he was going to talk to DPW about trying to use some sort of asphalt to put in some added parking lots. And my main point is the number of times that I go up to the state hospital, especially on weekends. And I guess I'll say I unexpectedly see John up there doing something that needs to be done. In this case, he was directing traffic at the gate. And I know that, many of us understand how much of a help he's been to the town since we bought that property. But every once in a while, he pops up somewhere. And if I didn't go by, I wouldn't have known about it. So I just want to thank him for his continuing work, and especially on the Saturday before Christmas, he's in there in a truck trying to keep people from getting stuck in the snow.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Gus.
John.
Thank you, Mike. I had three things to mention. One was that the MCAP, Medfield Cares About Prevention, held a meeting and had a very moving discussion from David Traub about himself. And the second thing is the Townwide Master Planning Committee had a meeting last Thursday, and you should be getting the final plan has been submitted, and that should be getting to the select board soon. And then the last thing that I would mention is that I did have three residents around my neighborhood who had traffic issues about the winter lights. And so I tried to facilitate some discussion between those people and the police and Gene and Brett. And there was a detour sign down at the hospital road at Harding. And some people then obeyed the detour and went around and got stuck for a long time in the line trying to get in at around 7 o'clock, or before 7, I think, was when the busy time was. And but I think that the police chief was very responsive and has talked to everybody. Gene, I think, has talked to people too. And so that it sounds like it was in general a very successful event. I actually attended Gene's planning meeting one night at 4 o'clock on Saturday night. I think she invited me to come, so I went and had some input with her there. My sense is that I think that the town actually should have like a checklist for any event that we permit, like a to-go on to says for doing surgery or flying airplanes, that you should just have a checklist. And I think that we should create one of those that just sends people to the police chief, the fire chief, or whatever other boards and committees they should talk to. So that we just don't miss anything. So
Good idea.
That would be for the state hospital, but it would also be for, like the high school parade, before the graduation, the high school parade through town, or is it just the hospital?
well, I'm thinking of it for any event, Gus. I mean, certainly, if someone's asking for a car wash behind the town hall, there might be a lot fewer boxes that they would be looking to check, or we'd be expecting them to check. But it might make sense to just have a set of expectations.
That sounds like a good idea, Pete.
And that's it for me.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, sounds like I made the wrong suggestion.
No. We actually in Franklin, as part of a policy on parades permits, have that type of checklist in place, as well as criteria for what we allow in terms of permitting of that, use of assemblies, parades, and permits is the three things for use of the common or the streets or whatever. And it does involve filing an application with background information. It goes to the police chief and other boards for their review and comment, and then there's authority to issue it with particular conditions to protect the public health and safety. If you don't have something like that in place, and this has been another one of those ongoing things with to-do lists with town bylaws updating and all, you're completely at the mercy of some group that comes in and wants to do something that may not be something that the public's going to like.
So, Mr. Sorrell, two things. Now that I know that you have a list in Franklin, could you share that with us, please? And secondly, now that I know that you're using my idea, I would expect a commission every time someone uses your checklist.
Referral fee?
So is there anything else to come before this meeting then?
I don't have anything this evening.
All right, I would move that we adjourn.
Second,
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
yes.
and Mr. Marcucci, yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Happy
you,
holidays.
everyone. Yep.
Everyone. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.